These are some benefits of DOE and non-manufacturing service processes. These are real case studies. So billing, marketing, accounting, human resources, computer downtime, retail, hospital, right? These are all proven case studies where in companies that have produced real results. And somebody that myself and Paul both know, called Giju Anthony at Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh, is actually writing, I think, the first book that's coming out ever on design of experiments for service industries. He's writing it right now. So that and that might apply more to sort of have more supply chain implications.
Have you got a blank page again, John?
Yeah.
Give us a blank page.
Sure. Thank you, Weebkey. Yeah.
So again, draw us an input-output diagram, John.
Yeah.
As you've been doing before.
Yeah.
So give us the box with X's going in and Y's coming out.
Right. So everybody's familiar with this diagram by now. Okay.
Okay, so there's your process. So it doesn't matter. I mean, I talk machines all the time because I'm an engineer. So I like messing about with manufacturing processes. But so if I was talking manufacturing, X1 would be time, X2 would be temperature, X3 would be pressure, and X4 might be speed. Yeah. So we write those down: time, temperature, pressure, and speed. And our output might be strength, let's say. How strong is it?
Which is actually what you did about that, the strength of the plastic seal on the ink cartridges.
Yeah, that's right.
Got a video of trying to improve strength of seal. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a manufacturing example. But let's say you were trying to design a website. So you're trying to design a website and you're trying to sell stuff. Yeah. Well, what could your X1, 2, 3 be? Could be background color.
Yeah.
Font. Do you use Comic Sans? Font, it could be, what else could it be? Could it be embedded video? So in other words, is it a static website or does it swing around and it's got video in it? And
or show prices or don't show prices.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, that's what training companies are doing. Some don't show the prices.
Yeah. And then the measurement
sales
would be the buy rate or revenue.
Sales rate or revenue.
Yeah, sales revenue. And then what you would do is, and people do this, by the way. I mean, this is not an example that I'm making up. There are companies that you can go to.
Google do this,
and they will do this. They will actually do a Taguchi L12. They do a Taguchi L12 on the way that a website is designed. They will effectively put 12 different websites live all at the same time. And then those 12 different websites will all have a different sales rate. They look and analyze and they say, it looks like it's the font or it's the videos that's attracting people. And then they'll design the best website to get the best sales rate. And again, it's the fastest way to do it.
Yeah. Does that help, Weebkey? You're on mute. Oh, I've got.
Yeah,
Julie.
yeah, more or less.
Julie's back. Let me see.
That's fine.
Right, Julie. Let's see where you are. Participants. Julie, allowed to talk. I don't know why that changes. Hi, Julie. You can talk now.
Hi there. I think it changes because I literally logged off and logged back in.
Oh, okay.
Okay, could you give me the example of these, how you would do the experiment for the example you gave of paying invoices? So somehow you might, I think one of those examples was, I can't remember which one it was, paying
Yeah.
payment of invoices.
Yeah, here you go.
Is it bill processing? Or is that actually billing for the customer?
Accounts receivable, process bills. No, there was an example. Accounts receivable is, receiving money.
I think it was next page, John.
Okay, thank you.
Up there, the second row.
Oh, yeah. Billing.
So there you've got, I mean, the example there, it says you studied over a dozen factors at 2 levels. So in that situation, you're doing a screening DOE.
So is that really more or less doing different, again, visual types of telephone bill?
I think so. I mean,
Okay.
obviously this is John's example, but it seems that would be the case. You would basically be, let's say that the pattern that because all of these are just patterns and they're pre-designed patterns. So when we go and do the DOE, I just go to a pattern. The pattern's already been worked out for me. I'm not working the pattern out. It's something that's been sitting around for 100 years, just waiting to be used. So I just use the pattern. But let's say the pattern called for 16 different types of telephone bill. What you would actually do is you would create 16 different designs of telephone bill. You would send them out and you would see which one is getting paid the fastest or is reacted to the fastest, or whatever the response is. You've obviously got to decide that there's some response that you're trying to optimize or understand.
Yeah, like first time response rate, do they pay without a reminder? How many reminders do you need?
Or pay without a query.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes, I mean, I've got to be honest, I've looked at my telephone bill. I can't understand it from Adam. I wonder who the hell's designed it. But fortunately, I just look at the value on the bottom. I'll pay whatever's on the bottom.
Okay, thank you.
Cool.
I mean, a client of mine, just to give you a little example, a client of mine, John mentioned printer cartridges, and I've done quite a lot of work with a company that refurbishes the big printer cartridges in the big laser printers. So the cartridges about 8 or 10 inches long. They're quite big units that go in and out of large office printers.
Yeah.
But they came to me and they said, one of the things that we rely on in order to refurbish old printer cartridges is the customer sending the old cartridge back. So they were talking about what instruction leaflet should they put in the box that would encourage the return of the cartridge. So we talked about things like, shall we have the leaflet in color? Shall we have the leaflet in black and white? The message on the leaflet, do we want it to be positive or do we want it to be negative? So shall we include pictures of dead fish floating in a river and be negative? Or shall we include pictures of a beautiful sunny day with butterflies skipping across the meadow? Which message would give us the best response? And that's something that you can do.
Yeah, good.
Did you come to the conclusion? What was the answer?
Well, I think unfortunately they came to me after they'd already sent some leaflets out. So they decided, basically what they did was a one-factor test, and they said, well, we've already sent 100,000 leaflets out designed like this. And I sort of said to them, well, if you'd have thought about it for 5 minutes, folks, you could have designed an experiment and it would have been a much more knowledgeable test that they were doing. So unfortunately, they chose to go the one-factor route and to use their experience and skill. And of course, if you use your experience and skill, either the test works or the test doesn't. And you don't necessarily know why, which feature of the leaflet failed. Was it the fact that it wasn't in color? Was it the fact that we didn't have pictures? Was it the fact that the message was negative, positive? Who knows? And that's the problem with one-factor testing. You don't learn anything with one-factor testing.
Good. Okay. I just want to Paul's not going to like that slide. Two black belts. No, just you know, I think you're probably going to disagree on the order of linear regression, multivariate. Now, the reason this is understanding relationships, the reason that you can do these sorts of linear regression, multivariate analysis, that sort of thing, is if you've got existing data, like historical data, and if you've been saving data, you've got a good IT system and you've got lots of past data, then you can use that to look for relationships. You can look for a relationship between the inputs and the outputs, and you don't have to spend the time and money at that point on an experiment. Experiments will cost you time and money because you have to take over your production equipment. You got two choices. Either you have a complete test environment, which can be expensive to set up a test environment, or you use your production equipment in an off day or at night, and then there's always you've got product. You're going to produce bad product. So depending on how much the materials cost, you're going to have a lot of liver pate that is not, you can't sell, because the whole purpose is you're going to have some experiments that don't give you a good output. So what I was trying to show in this slide is, start out with things when you're doing examining your inputs to outputs. Use things like the fishbone diagram and an XY matrix. We didn't cover. It's not going to be in your exam, but it's just another tool for looking at relationships between inputs and outputs, but doing it in a matrix fashion as opposed to a fishbone fashion. Pareto, looking for correlation regression. You might do some hypothesis testing using existing data, right? Existing data. So going to, one factor at a time we're saying is not recommended, but if you were just going to test one factor, you could do that. You don't need a designed experiment to test one factor to see what happens. Then we get into DOE, where you need to use production equipment and use up real materials, or in the example of testing marketing materials, or testing a website, you have to use real clients. So there is a risk, Paul, of upsetting a real client with sending them something that doesn't appeal to them.
Yeah, I mean the point about all of this, and I think one of the videos I posted live last week. You see, Six Sigma shouldn't exist. Six Sigma is a response to the fact that your new product introduction process is rubbish. Because if your new product introduction process was any good, you would have done all this before you started. What we don't want to do is we don't want to put the pate process live, decide that the pate process doesn't work very well, and have bucket loads of it going in the bin, and then try and figure out what the hell's going on. What we would sooner do is have the food technologists do new product introduction properly. Now, if they do new product introduction properly, they might have done the DOE at the pre-production stage when it's very cheap. It's very cheap to do DOE when it's pre-production because you're not committing anything. You're not going to upset the customer. You haven't engaged the customer with the product yet. You're still trying to figure out how the process works. It's very low risk if you do it in new product introduction time. But of course, nobody does it in new product introduction time. What they do is they rush the new product introduction through, create absolute bloody mayhem. And then once they've created mayhem, they train a load of Six Sigma green belts and black belts to go and sort it out. But actually, you'd be much better off training your new product introduction people in Six Sigma, and then the projects would never exist. Everything would hit the line right first time.
Yeah.
So I do agree with you, John. It's more risky. It's more risky when we're live, but then it's more risky to do everything when you're live. You shouldn't go live and take risks.
Right. Right. Good. And something we were saying, you know, Paul was recommending don't go above like 12 variables, factors, but you know, you could go higher. That's a bit arbitrary, that number. There's nothing like hard. That's not a hard. That's a approximately number. But this is more you know, suitable for when you only got down to a few variables, then you can do full factorial.
Yep, and that's a hard number. 2 to 6 is.
Yeah, and then we don't cover this in the Greenbelt course, but it is a method to then work outside of the original inference space and try to understand in what direction, if this was our original sort of inference space at this cube here, what is the best direction to go in for our next set of experiments? Should we be going in this direction? Should we be going in this direction? It's to do with where do we go next for, where's our next optimization coming from? Okay. So that's that. And what I'd like you to, we'll take a 5-minute break. I don't know whether Paul is able to stay with us, but what we'll do after the break is do a couple of examples, but then I want you to do this in Sigma Excel. There is some data which has been gathered from an experiment, and I want you to actually, we're going to generate the experiment first, and then we're going to put in some made up results, which are we've got the made up results to generate. So these results are already in your worksheet, and then we can generate some results of which input had the biggest effect on the output, right? And we can't do the catapult experiment. We do that in the classroom, but we can sort of think about what a catapult. I have a catapult here that I can show you, but we can think about that, and that'll be the end of design of experiments. So actually take 10 minutes, please, which is
So just before they go, John, just a little reminder. I'm going to drop out now, but
all right.
If they pick up my email address, if they want a copy of my book, as I said, it's a bit rough around the edges, but it explains. It's about It's about 160 pages, 170 pages, DOE. It explains about one factor at a time experimentation, why that doesn't work. It talks about the history of what Fisher did. And then he tells them about screening, he tells them about modeling, and he shows them how to use the diagrams and things like that. It's using some different software, but you know, that they'll get the point from the exercises that you're doing compared to the version that I'm using.
Yeah.
So if they want a copy and they want to read it and just give me a little bit of feedback, then feel free, folks. I'm happy to send you the copy and then send you a copy of the finished book free of charge when we've done it.
Brilliant. Thank you very, very much.
That's okay.
John,
Yeah.
John,